Welcome to First Dates and Soulmates to all of our lovely loons. We are going back into the world of Heated Rivalry this week, not because they released anything new, but because I keep seeing memes of people suggesting what to read next, and I think that it's really limited, and we have lots and lots of opinions. So I am your co-host, Meg Casewalt.
I'm Nikki McKnight.
And I don't spend a lot of time on social media, but I think after Off Campus came out, I started to see another round of, if you love hockey romance, here's more hockey romance. And I think that that's a really helpful thing, and I'm sure that it travels incredibly well on social media and on Book Talk. I don't know, I'm not on Book Talk. But I personally, having read both those books, having done both those books here on the podcast, wanted to have a conversation where you and I can actually look at, it's not just hockey romance. You know, there's so many reasons that we fell in love with these books, that they continue to sell decades in the case of Off Campus after they were released. What is it about that one? But really today we're going to talk about Heated Rivalry. What is it about Heated Rivalry? What is it about game changers that made us interested enough as both a book and a series and an adaptation?
Yeah, because like everything is still hanging on. Like, for those of you who listen to my interviews that I did with authors at Love and Romance in Toronto, like several authors, the clips that made it into the episode, I think it was Charlie Novak and Kira Andrews, talking about how their ship that week was their reheat. Well, I love that the fandom came up with the term of this. We're reheating Heated Rivalry for like the 200th time, and now that they've started filming season 2 and 3, or allegedly, according to Francois Arnault, being filmed back to back. And it's looking like the long game might be separated over the course of 2 seasons. There's rumors flying all over that who's been cast as Troy, and if Ryan Harris has been cast. So the casting rumors are all over the internet right now on what's happening. Then Jacob Tierney announced in support of the next season to attend the next season premiere. They've partnered with a charity where you can win the opportunity to appear on the red carpet at the next premiere, depending, like a lot of actors or celebrities have done this with certain charities. Like, if you donate a certain amount to charity via this portal, you get a certain number of entries into a prize to win. And now Jacob Tierney's doing that. Province of Canada had their Release the Fleece Canada drop, I think 2 weeks ago at the time of this recording. It sold out in like 8 minutes. And they're also releasing the book, like the Behind Heated Rivalry book is coming out pretty soon, I think, which is going to have like annotated scripts and other kind of behind the scenes material. It's also now been distributed onto other platforms. I believe it's also now on Apple TV. HBO has color corrected their copies, and a lot of Americans are like, oh my God, you can see so much more detail. So this is just such an enduring piece of culture right now that I love this idea of saying, yeah, like, here's, if you're a fan, here's what else you can look at that's just hockey, but also looking at game changers, looking at Heated Rivalry and saying, what? We don't love it because it's hockey. We're not, they have skates, this means we really want to watch this. Like, hockey is not the draw, hockey is the setting. But what about it being hockey? What about it being secret romance? What about it being these texting conversations? What about it being high stakes, public versus private? What is it about that we love, and why does it work? And then how can you find new material that hits those things, rather than just, here's a list of 55 hockey books, which are all great, but they may not hit the same thing emotional just because they're hockey
reaction. Yeah, I barely tolerate the fact that it's hockey. I skip through all the hockey scenes because I don't care
need them
about
to be
the
playing
hockey.
Sports.
Oh, come on, no more sports ball. Just get me to the reason why the sports ball has to happen. And I think, we've talked before about the sex has to move the plot, and the action hero has to, all of those big explosions have to move the plot, and the sports in a sports romance have to move the plot. But I'm like, okay, let's get back to the plot though.
Yeah, no, it's like when we interviewed Eden Finley, and she was like, yeah, I know I researched just enough to be able to talk about it, but you'll notice that my character walked into the arena. Hours later, once the game was over, they walked out of the arena. She's like, I don't need to play in getting the rules right, but also, who really wants to see that or read about it? Maybe some people.
Right,
and I think hockey romance, go with God, have fun, but no.
Yeah. And Eden also said, like, she likes hockey as a sport, which is why she wants to do it. But, like, whenever she moves into football, she makes these, or baseball, she makes these decisions of, like, oh, look, this character doesn't understand it. And I'll just do all of those scenes from that person's perspective. I'm like, that's so smart. But the point is, you know, it's not that we will gladly do an episode on sports romance if people want us to do an episode on sports romance, because there are absolutely pieces of sports romance that are done incredibly well in Heated Rivalry, in all of Game Changers, and in multiple of their sports romances. But that's not the only thing that makes these books interesting or valuable, or makes people choose, oh, I'm going to reheat it again instead of going and watching something else, or I'm going to do another reread of the series instead of going and checking something else out. What is it about this particular book series that makes people keep wanting to go back to more, besides just, oh yeah, it's hockey? I have a list. I have a long list of the things that I like about this that isn't exclusively just the hockey.
Yeah, and I was kind of going back through a lot of the media, the social media, the real, like, traditional media at the time of the initial series release, and that big initial boom of popularity, and looking through, like, what were they picking up about the show? What were they identifying as, like, oh, this is why it's so good? And sure, it's hockey, like, especially for the Canadian crowd. We're like, hockey, that's a stereotype. Not all of us, but many of us. But also they were talking about things like the yearning. We're going from just having sex and no emotions into a deeply emotional setup. And going from really, especially in the case of, like, Ilya, like, the stoic, I don't care about nothing, into I'm actually the most sensitive and romantic person that you'll ever meet. And beneath my strong, stoic, fuckboy visage lies a soft, squishy boy. Like, those are the things that people are identifying behind it. And I think that is such a great opportunity to say, cool, if you want a hit of that, here's what else is available to you.
Exactly. And then also, like, the two characters being the two best players in the league. The fact that they're on competing teams, so even though they don't technically dislike each other, they've been pit against each other by the media, so you have that sort of, like, what is the press saying about them whenever they have to be in the room together? They're getting forced together in all these situations to, you know, present awards together because people think they hate each other, and, you know, like, the rivalry piece of that is not enemies to lovers. It's rivals. They're on different teams. They came up together in the league, you know? And so the fact that they're both captains, they're both really good, they both play their hardest when they do compete with their teams against each other. And then, you know, right after they're done, they're shit-talking each other because they're in the bedroom together. And you get those moments where you get Ilya going, well, I won MVP, so what are you going to do? And you get your cup chair. Back to the cup chair scene.
The thing that we are, like, ranking for on Google, funny enough. I think we often talk about romance as being formulaic in a way. There's certain tropes that we expect, and where the magic happens is how authors, readers, creators play within those tropes and reinvent them. And you and I were going back and forth a little bit in prep for this episode, going, like, what is the formula? Is it like rivals plus soft squishy boy equals explosive relationship, and
plus queer awakening?
Yeah, so here's a assignment for all y'all listening, and hit us up on Threads. Like, what do you think is, like, what are the parts of the magical formula that make up why this was successful as a TV? I think as a TV property, we can argue that the cast was absolutely phenomenal. Jacob Tierney as a creator and as a director is amazing. The entire production team was great. But more so as, like, a book property. And I know a lot of the book repopularity now is just a byproduct of the show being popular. But, like, what is it about the book that made people fall in love with it in the first place before we ever saw Hudson Williams, before we ever saw Connor Story, Francois Arnault, and all the rest of the amazing cast? Like, what is it? What is the magical formula for the sweet spot? And we often talk about, and I get to see authors talk about on social all the time, like, if I knew the magic formula for X, I would be doing it. But I think it's an interesting thought exercise, and that's likely going to differ from each reader. of what is it about this that made you go, because for me, it's the yearning, it's the fuckboy to soft squishy boy, and it's the rivals to lovers. I think those are probably like my top 3 parts of my formula for why I loved the series, but Heated Rivalry more specifically. Do you have like a formula? Do you know what like your top like 2 to 3 characteristics would be that would pop up in like your formula?
My formula would be the long-term but consistently meeting up. So like the 10-year timeline where they have these little moments, but they don't get to choose when those moments happen. They have to like, the stars have to align for them to be together, at least at the beginning. That's one of them. I think the cultural differences is core for me. The fact that you have the language barrier. Mm-hmm. And over the course of the 10 years, you see Ilya's language get both better, his English language skills, and softer, that he's able to express himself more. He's not quite as closed off, and so you get that certainly coming along. But then also, I'm going to subcategory that, which is the stakes for Ilya. You know, if he comes out, he can never go home again. Mm-hmm. So having that sort of international piece to it. And then I think it's the secret communication also does it for me. The Lily and Jane text messages back and forth. The way that people know that both of them have, your girl in Boston. They know that they're seeing someone. They don't know who it is. That sort of secrecy piece that's more than just the rivalry. It's like the fact that it's someone on another team. You know, in so many straight hockey romances, it's somebody who works for the team, or it's, the high school sweetheart who happens to be back in town, or, he knocked her up one night, and now, like, there has to be a reason that they're back together, whereas these two keep getting forced together against their will to an extent, but also they have to make that time matter, and I think that, to me, is the key piece of Heated Rivalry that would be hard for someone else to replicate without those specific, like, these are opposing teams in a league that sets the schedule.
Yeah, the idea of scheduling and logistics, I love that as a recurring joke for us. We're like, but the logistics! Why do they have keys to the arena? Who's cleaning up that turkey? That somebody actually like commented on our social media, like, why? That's so dumb. Who gives a shit about the turkey? Like, why are you focusing on this? I'm like, you clearly have not seen this show before to know, like, justice for operations professionals.
Nikki's like, where's their social security card? The aliens aren't going to be able to stay without citizenship.
Where is her purse? You're going out with no purse? It's bullshit. I say that as someone who never goes out with a purse. If it doesn't go in my pocket, it's not going. But and there's certain, I love that you brought up stakes, because I think that is probably one of the biggest parts of this that transcends the sports genre, is the stakes of, I'll say, coming out. The stakes of, even in like a straight romance, the stakes of your relationship becoming public. And for me, that's not necessarily something that's attractive, because it stresses me the fuck out. But I think you can find this in secret identity books. Like we did several episodes. We did a whole month, I think, on secret identity, secret royals, secret billionaires, secret spies, right? Like the stakes of a relationship becoming public at a time when you can't control definitely has like narrative tension to it. It's also present in one of the fake boyfriend series. I can't remember, the one about the NFL player who gets like outed against their will. Like it's made public and they don't know it's coming, and ultimately, spoiler alert for the long game, that's what happens to Ilya and Shane. They don't get to control the coming out. It's because Hayden is recording a cameo type thing, and oh look, they're kissing in the background. So like the stakes of the relationship becoming public, I do think that's something that people love. Me personally, it stresses the fuck out, but those types of books are really fun.
Yeah, they can be, and they can also be really stressful, and that's part of what makes the tension so delicious, is at some point the other shoe's going to drop. You know that they're not just going to live this way forever, and you can have Shane and Ilya at the end of Heated Rivalry say, oh yeah, we'll just wait 10 years, and then we'll come out together. And there are books where that's successful, where they're able to negotiate that. So at the, we just talked about Ian Finley, Saxon James, their Puckboy series. they have several versions of that where it's like, okay, we will wait 2 years after my retirement to say that we're together. And that particular series takes a much more kind of lighthearted, less cynical approach to how the media works, that they wouldn't just notice that you moved in with a team owner after you retired, or that you left your career but you're still going down and seeing the team trainer from your old team all the time, or whatever it is. You know, like they're kind of a little hand wavy in it, and that's fine because that's the tone that works for that particular series. But for series like Game Changers, we expect there to be media criticism. We expect there to be cameras on them all the time. And at some point, their plan is not going to work anymore. And so you're living in that tension even when you're living in the joy of they finally get to the cottage. They finally, accidentally come out to his parents, which again is another tension that you're living with. It's not just the public knowledge of their relationship, it's also the private knowledge of their relationship and the family and the first people who find out about it. And that tension is so, and yet the relationship is so worth it and the love is so deep that they want to go through that for each other.
Yeah, I love this idea that we do see it in Heated Rivalry. We see it in him, Serena Bowen and Al Kennedy, especially the second book, which is Him and Us is book 2. Yes.
I think it's Him, Us, Him, Them, Us.
I can't remember. But that series, is how do we kind of come out in that public way? Red, White, and Royal Blue, which every time I say that, I'm like, Royal Blue. There's too many H's and W's in there, I think. It's similar. Although it's kind of like the rivalry becomes performed again, right? Yeah. Like Henry and Alex are performing this relationship of we're rivals who became friends. But, they have a relationship going on with texting, with email writing, that, of course, that becomes public. So you have, like, those big high-stakes identity reveals or relationship reveals that create some plot tension. But there's also, like, a subsect of that is, like, professional partners who can't. You see this in a lot of mainstream, like, cop procedurals, that I'm in love with my partner, and we're dating, but if our relationship comes out, we won't be partners anymore. They'll have to split us up. We have this with Rigsby and Van Pelt in The Mentalist. We have it in Castle with Kate and Castle. In romance novels, one of my favorite series is 0 Hour by Amy Nicole Walker. It's a multiple book series that now has several spin-off series involving the same characters, but that's 2 police detectives who at the beginning don't like each other. They're rivals in a way, like they're rivals just because they don't get along, not because like something happened. They literally meet in the first book. But there's a tension of we're starting this relationship, but if our commander finds out, if our boss finds out, if a parent or a family member finds out, because maybe we can't be together because of a family rivalry, like Hatfield and McCoy type thing, like professional partners who can't because of a family feud. That's also really fun, and an element I think we can pull out of the secret relationship is baked into the premise by external rules rather than like an internal fear of being found out or having those types of stakes.
Yeah, and you get that also sometimes in like employee-employer relationships. Not necessarily boss-secretary, but I was thinking as you were talking about bodyguards, where it's like if we're spending literally all of our time together. I think about like Atris, Code Red, spending all their time together, or maybe that wasn't bodyguard, that was a PA. It was booked Code Blue, he was the bodyguard. But you're spending all this time together and you're supposed to be protecting that person. But then if you get too emotionally attached, then you lose your sense of being able to watch the room because you're too focused on that person, and therefore it makes you bad at your job. But it puts that person at risk. Mm-hmm. Or if you're their PA and, you want to be able to separate your life and your love. And that's what's really interesting about a lot of workplace romances, because to an extent, not always, but some sports romances, especially sports romances, are also workplace romances. And that's what this is. We don't call it workplace romance, but this is in fact their jobs. This isn't just like an office space.
Yeah, like different companies, I guess, to go with your metaphor. But yeah, like this is their workplace. There are certain ways you have to behave And I hesitate to say the NHL in real life has behavior rules because clearly they don't give a fuck about what some of their players have done in the past, and they shouldn't have jobs and they suck hardcore. But that, by nature of their jobs, this also brings in another part which you identified earlier, which was the long distance aspect of it, because my job takes me to different places. What was the first book in the Love Logic series by K.M. Newhold? Was it like Rocket Science or something? Whatever book one was, you had Pax, who was kind of like the traveling sales guy, and his younger brother's best friend moves to his town. Ethan, I think his name was. I don't remember. Book one in Love Logic. Part of this, the challenge with their relationship is one of them is a salesperson. He's constantly on the move. He's in different cities. Then you have people who are in like different time zones. Like, oh, he had to go to Japan for a work trip. It's a 13-hour time difference. When are we actually going to have time to connect? We live in different cities. We only get to see each other twice a year. Like, that's why another layer that I think works really well with Heated Rivalry that we can find elsewhere is you have like this, oh my gosh, I really wish we were together, so that when they are together, it's explosive because they're in the same room.
And it was Rocket Science. I just looked it up in case we're looking for it. And I think also another Eden and Saxon Puckboy book that does this really well is Forbidden Puckboy. It's not just best friend's brother. It's also one of them works in the NHL and one of them works as a ref. And so they're constantly scheduling across the country to different places. So it's not just playing for different teams. It's having different roles even when you're on the ice. And can you, like, is the league going to let the ref who is your boyfriend work your game? Or do they think that he would be biased and give you more, advice or rule in your favor more often? And so I think sometimes when you get that, like, our roles are different, that can also add an additional layer of tension. And often when you get into sports romance, whether it's or queer or straight, you do get somebody else who works in the building with them to make it feel like a workplace romance. So, sometimes you'll get a trainer who is also working in the building. One of my favorites is Rookie Move by Serena Bowen, where it's a hockey player and his ex-girlfriend is the publicist of the team. And so he has to go back and sort of engage with her, but she's very icy to him because obviously she doesn't want to work with her ex-boyfriend as a publicist, but that's her job. And so you still get that workplace romance and sports romance. You get both of those stacked on top of each other, but that's how you can also make it work without it necessarily being queer.
Yeah, I've had this book in the back of my mind as we've been talking, and I was like, I can't remember what it's called. So I just went into my computer and I was like, I think a character's named Cameron. I think somebody's named Noah, and there's something about lifeguarding. And I remember reading this. I did find it. It's called Diving in Deep. It's by K.A. Mitchell. I read this years and years and years ago. And you have Cameron, who is a water safety trainer who travels for work. And he's going to this place with like lifeguards or something to train a bunch of people in like new techniques. And he walks in, he sees Noah, who is his best friend's kid brother. And he knows that Noah has had a crush on him since he was 15. So he's walking into the room going, oh, shit, Noah got hot. But also, like, one of the biggest tensions in their story is they hooked up once, a one-night thing after a wedding when Noah was 19, and they haven't like talked in 6-7 years or something like that. And Cameron's job means they barely get to see each other. He's based out of another town or another city in the US, but he's constantly traveling, and he's in these other places for weeks at a time because he's doing water safety training. And then Noah is in this one spot, and they're always like going back and forth on not only should we even be together because best friend's brother, and we hooked up when you were 19, but I know you have a crush on me, and you're not like a hookup guy, and that's all I can do because of my work. But also, how does the kind of like the fuckboy become the soft, squishy, romantic guy who makes a grand gesture? Yeah, I just looked it up. It was originally published in 2009. That's probably when I read it. So
I love that. I love that, like, these conversations.
That.
You and I kind of came into this and we're like, we have our lists, but also we know that the list is going to change once we start talking.
No, and lifeguards. I don't know. There you go. I remembered what the book was.
I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
That was a big pull. I like it a lot. I think also one of the things that I like about Heated Rivalry that works, even if it's not in a hockey romance, is that these two people are the best at what they do. They're the best in their game. So you have that rivalry. And you brought up a really good rivalry example a couple weeks ago with Bedside Manor.
Oh, the C.G. Masington series.
C.G. Masington, yeah. And like those two doctors are in different fields, and so they sort of butt heads. Kate Canterbury does this also incredibly well in, I think it's The Worst Best Man is the one that she wrote that has two doctors that are sort of going head to head. One is more of an ER trauma surgeon. The other one is a cosmetic plastic surgeon, and so they disagree about some things that need to happen, and then they end up coming together and working on a couple different projects together. I see this a lot with lawyers, anyone who has a really intense career and they have to go through a lot of school to get there. I'm actually surprised I haven't seen Competing Architects, but I'm sure it's out there.
Pretty sure
also I was thinking about
give me 10 minutes, I'm pretty sure I can find me.
I worked in architecture long enough, I would probably wince at all of it. But another one that I was thinking about is Dear Plant Daddy as a good rival.
Shanae's book.
Yeah, Shanae Howard wrote that. It was the main character ran a plant store, like a small little plant store in, I think it was Long Beach, California. Super cute, very sweet. And then like the big plant influencers came in and opened the plant warehouse up the street. And so it became this rival workplace, like they're both in the plant industry and fighting against each other and both very good at understanding plants and who's going to put each other out of business. And I love those sort of rivalries in that way too, where it's competitive rivalry, but it's not like enemies in quite the same way.
Yeah. The Architect series I was thinking of was by N.R. Walker. It's the Thomas Elkin series where you have like a world famous architect in New York and a young new intern or architecture student coming in who starts an internship. Elements of Retrofit is book one.
I love it. So the problem with us doing this together is that over the past 2 years since we've been having these conversations, I feel like my reading scope has gotten closer to what you are doing, and every time you make a recommendation that I'm like, oh god, I'm gonna read that, then the viewpoint of the podcast gets a little bit slimmer because I'm reading more like you, but also the books are really fucking good.
Yeah. So I love that you brought up like the rivals aspect, because I tend to enjoy rivals more so than enemies, and there's a little bit of nuance there, but in a lot of places you could just use it interchangeably. And in the example of Bedside Manor, by C.J. Masington that you brought up, it's that they're in different departments, right? One's an ER doctor, and one's, I believe, cardiothoracic. And it's like you can respect their skill because you're not competing for patients, right? Like, I get to do this surgery. That's not present because it's different. But they do compete for like acclaim. They do compete for who is thought to be the best doctor in the hospital, even though like the ER doc is really not competing. It doesn't really matter to him as much. You're in other stories, you're competing for funding. You're competing for opportunities. I get that client account. I get to do that contract. I get to take that job or whatever. And I think that's really fun because you ultimately typically get to have a scene where they have to like, even a little bit unwillingly, respect the other person's acumen, respect their expertise, be like, oh, fuck, you are really good at this. God damn it, you're really good at this. And I can't be angry at you because of your skill. I can be angry at you with your personality, but I can differentiate between those two things.
I sort of went, well, it just has to be good sports romance. But honestly, there is one author that I am hanging on the edge of my seat every time that I read his hockey books. I cannot get enough of the hockey parts of the hockey books. Tal Bauer.
It is Tal Bauer. Oh,
it's Tal Bauer. I might actually care about hockey if I read enough Tal Bauer.
Yeah, I haven't read a lot of Tal Bauer's hockey because I know they're going to emotionally wreck me. I have to be in the mood to read a Tal Bauer book. He is just so fucking talented. Everything he writes is beautiful, but it's an emotional journey.
So my book of the year for our Tingley Awards was a Tal Bauer hockey book.
Was it graphic?
And I'm not
Which one was it?
That was the fall.
Oh, The Fall. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, it was devastating. It was, the hockey team, and there was a character who like had such a, I don't want to give it away anything because it has so many amazing twists and turns, but there was a character who had a brain injury early on, and then there's sort of like a time hopping component to it, which you think might be related to the brain injury and what's going on with that. But then also you just mentioned Gravity, which I think is also just an incredible hockey book, and Talbauer does not hold back with the big yearning, the big emotions, and he's not afraid to go there for the big set piece scenes either. So if you're like, I want the excitement of a hockey book, but also I want the emotion of Heated Rivalry, but like extended, because he writes long books, and you get the full found family, you get the full hockey team, you care about every single one of the characters in the book somehow. Go pick up any of Talbauer's books, period.
Just generally.
End of sentence. But specifically the hockey books, I would read his hockey all day. I might actually give a shit about hockey if Talbauer writes it.
Actually, you saying Talbauer sparked another idea for me, because I think I've shipped this on the show before. It's Talbauer's Secret Service, where it's the president of the United States and the head of his Secret Service, and there's a big kidnapping plot in it. And that is definitely a relationship. They go back and forth in time to, like, it opens with this big incident, and then it kind of flashes back and forth to when they first met, to when they started a relationship, and then by the end of the book you're kind of caught up to the existing timeline, which is the resolution of this plot. And that's like another place, you mentioned Bodyguard, that I think that book, if you like high stakes, if this comes out, I don't think it gets any higher than the President of the United States in terms of stakes and coming out, unless maybe it's a king. But also it's the secret relationship aspect of it. It's how do you communicate when everything you do is visible? And how do you surreptitiously connect? And neither one of them have control over their schedules. Like, that's another kind of part of it is, like you said, they're always being scheduled games in other places, and they have practices, and like they don't get to call in sick to have some afternoon delight. Like, that's not a thing they can do. It's going to be the same thing in Talbauer's Secret Service. So there's another one for your list.
So in case people are wondering, I think this podcast exists in part. I would say it's 38% because of Secret Service. I would attribute it to it, because that was the first book that you ever recommended to me.
I don't remember that at all, but that's awesome.
And if it hadn't, because we had been talking about The West Wing when we met.
Oh, yeah.
Then we talked about KM Newholtz, then we talked about a bunch of other things, but we talked about The West Wing because of my pen name, which I'd already decided on. And you were like, well, if you like that, you should read Secret Service. And so that was the first recommendation that you gave me. And if it had been bad, this podcast probably wouldn't exist.
So I guess thank you, Talbauer, for putting this together.
You're 38% awesome. Of the reason that we're here.
That's awesome.
I don't know what the others are. Probably wine and dogs and
we'll discover that at
really
some point.
smut.
Yeah. Okay. I like this. That's our formula. That is our formula. Yeah. For First Dates and Soulmates is Talbauer's Secret Service plus wine plus dogs. I guess that's fun.
Yeah, I would say West Wing fanfic.
Oh God. I love our lore. Our origin story is fucked, y'all.
It's so true. What are some other things that you love about Heated Rivalry that that you also have found in other books?
Ooh, okay. This is a great question. I think for me, it's going to get into like queer awakening on both sides. I would so be curious if there's a minific out there, maybe there's a novella, because I know Rachel has released a couple of novellas like over the years that kind of fill in different parts of the Game Changers universe. Like we see in the show, I'll mention specifically, when Shane goes to the hotel room after he and Rose are no longer together, and he's kind of had like that coming out moment with Rose, and now he wants to come out to Ilya and be like, look, we have a problem that we need to deal with, because this is not going away from me. I kind of want a little bit more in Shane's head throughout that process, like through his relationship with Rose, and he's like, this doesn't feel right, through to when he confesses to Ilya. I would love to see that. We did a whole episode, I believe it was Pride Month last year, on kind of coming out or by awakening romances.
The identity disco.
The identity disco. So I'm not going to just like repeat everything I said in that one. That episode has a huge list of recommendations. Like, go look if you need to.
And for context, the identity disco is our framework about what does it take to do a good queer awakening.
Yes. I do love identity disco. I don't even remember why I said identity disco, but now it has just become this everlasting thing that I'm a huge fan of. But there's something in that aspect of it that I love, how that was a soft moment. That was a supported moment. Not only, like, mostly I'm thinking specifically of Shane and Rose, when Rose, again, is in the series, in the TV series I'm thinking of specifically, when she's like kind of giving him probing questions to be like, if you want to pick up what I'm putting down, like, I am receptive to that and I'm not going to judge. Like, are there other gay players? Have you ever been with, like, that softer landing for Shane? I love, because he's a soft boy. But also, like, when he comes out to Ilya and Ilya initially responds with, like, why are you telling me this? Like, why are you bringing this up? Because now you're going to make me have to face shit. But I love that coming out aspect of the story, in that later on, again, spoiler alert for Long Game, the coming out is dramatic and not fun, and it ends horrifically. Like, fuck Montreal in the book, not in real life. Montreal, you're great. But the initial moment gets to have, like, that soft, accepted, immediately supportive landing. And that's the kind of coming out stories I like. The other ones stress me the fuck out.
Right. And I think also I love a story where it's not black and white. It's not, oh, I thought I was straight and now I'm queer. I think one of the things that I loved, especially about that transition of Shane, you know, sleeping with Ilya, dating Rose, breaking up with Rose, having a conversation with Ilya, was him realizing he's not bi. He'd always kind of told himself, oh, I'm bi. I just happen to sleep with both, you know? And then when he realizes that he's not attracted to Rose or any women the way that he is to Ilya, he has to have this reckoning within himself of, oh no, I think I'm just gay. Like, and I think that for a lot of people, it isn't a one-time awareness thing. It's, you know, I just saw a friend of mine posted on Facebook that their child said, I think I'm gay. And then about a year later, they said, I think I'm non-binary. And then a year later, they said, I think I'm trans. And so it sort of became, you just follow that person's story wherever they are in their self-awareness and say, okay, great. What can I do to support you? What can I do to help you? Because it's not always once and it's over. It can often be that spectrum and a slow transition. And I love that for Shane. And I know we've talked so much about this book already, but Saddles to Sunup by Emmy Sanders has the same thing where, I can't remember the characters' names, but the one who used to be married, the one who has a kid, he, because we're doing a lot of these recommendations on the fly off our memories, he thought he was straight, but he always just had a really good relationship with his best friend, Oakley. I remember Oakley was the best friend. And then, you know, he realizes over the course of being in a marriage that isn't quite working, and they're trying to have a better sex life, and it turns out he likes to be pegged. And so then he turns to Oakley after the divorce and says, I think I want to try sleeping with a guy and just see what it's like. And then over the course of that experience, he goes, oh, I'm not bi, I'm gay. Very similar to what Shane goes through is, oh, I thought that because, you know, we live in a heteronormative society that assumes heterosexuality is the norm. And so I love those transitions too, the slow, you know, not one time awakening, but series of awakenings. That feels so good in a book.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to something we talked about in that coming out episode last year during Pride, was like, coming out is not a one and done. If you choose to come out, or how you come out, none of which is required, but it's not a one and done process. You have to constantly be doing it because people around you are going to assume a heteronormative structure of things, and constantly having to navigate and reaffirm your identity. Like, the emotional exhaustion that can come with that, the fear that can come with that, but also the satisfaction that can come with that. And that's something I loved in Heated Rivalry, with Shane being like, I'm going to say this because it has explained things for me in a way that, like, oh, a lot of stress, but also like, this explains things. And how often do we just want something to explain something?
Yeah.
just to give it a reason. Even if it's a bad thing, I'm like, as long as there's a fucking reason, then I can deal with it. Or figure out what I do next.
Shane is a complex character because, it wasn't until recently that Rachel came out and confirmed that he was autistic or coded autistic, but it's there on the page if you're looking for it. And he has rules that he wants to follow. He has a rigid way of thinking, and he had things that were in boxes, and that's just the way that this is who I am. I checked off that box. I don't want to go back and re-examine that. And so I love also romance that has autistic characters, romance that has neurodivergent characters, romance that you have to grapple with your own understanding of your brain and your understanding of yourself, and that might look differently for you. And it can be really frustrating for both other characters and the reader. Where, in that queer awakening or gay awakening, we'll say, moment for Shane, he's like, I have to say this out loud. And Ilya's like, but why do you have to say it out loud? Like, why does it matter what the label is? Because that's Ilya trying to sort of compartmentalize his own CPSD. Because, of course. But, having those neurodivergent characters, it makes a huge difference to the way that I have an autistic kid, and I feel like I understand him better because I've read books with autistic main characters. We could do a whole episode on just that, which I could go for a long time about.
Oh, yeah. Like, if we want to deep dive into autistic, ADHD, or neurodivergent characters, I have lists, y'all. I see myself.
Okay, so let's not go there today. We will put a pin into that one. We'll put it on the list. I don't know when Mental Health Awareness Month is, but we could do it for that. Whatever. We've got so many ideas.
It'll come up on the schedule at some point. Yeah. Beautiful. Anything else we want to say about if you loved Heated Rivalry, here's what you should check out next?
I think my recommendation largely is think about what it is that you loved about Heated Rivalry, and then figure out what the trope is that aligns with that. Because so many of the recommendations that I see are just hockey, or queer sports.
Yeah.
And I think that this book and the story is so much deeper and richer, and it doesn't just work because it's sports romance. It works because it has so much depth and content. So that's what I would say to that's the thing that I love about it, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation that is more than just hockey.
Ooh,
what about you, Nikki? What do you
say
ship the
that's
most?
Your ship? Okay. I didn't mean for that to be your ship, but I'll take it.
That was just where I went with it.
Cool.
That wasn't really a ship, but what do you ship the most about Heated? Well, we'll say it this way. What do you ship the most about Heated Rivalry adjacent tropes and recommendations?
Yeah, I think if I look at the formula and if I pick out the things that I love in romance and that spoke to me in this series, I think it has to come down to the secret yearning. Y'all know me. I love yearning.
I'm so surprised by this.
I said no one ever. It is the yearning. It's them trying to figure out that when they're together, they have some type of mask on, but then over time they realize that where they actually want to be is in front of each other. And how do they get there that they don't have to feel performing, or they don't have to feel like they are performative or performing in front of the other person, and then having that culmination, that resolution be when the chips are down, when the masks have dropped, this is what we are to each other. That's what I fucking love about those stories. You're welcome. All right. Before we get into the final question of what we are shipping this week, a gentle reminder, head on over to your podcast provider of choice, leave us a rating, leave us a review, subscribe. It genuinely helps more people find out about the show, and we'd greatly appreciate that. That is my formula. Listen plus review equals super happy podcast hosts. Go forth and do.
So Nikki, what are you shipping this week?
Time of this recording, America's Sweethearts, the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders series on Netflix just dropped season 3. I love this fucking show. So I like to say I'm one of the OG DCC fans because I used to watch Making the Team back on CMT, in the early 2000s. There's just something I love about those types of shows. And I love the Netflix series version of it. Whenever I need inspiration or motivation or just need to reinvigorate myself in my business, the number one place I go to is sports reality shows. So I watch DCC. I watch Cheer season 1, never season 2. I watch the CrossFit documentaries, the movies about the CrossFit Games. I watched the Simone Biles documentary on Netflix because seeing people who are at the top of their game mentally and physically, there's just something about that gets me like, oh my God, here we go. I could totally be Simone Biles, just not in gymnastics. But like with
you're probably about the same height, right?
Honestly, we're probably pretty close. Yeah. But like with DCC, I love looking at it as someone who watches reality TV and understands how things get edited and put together. I think they do a pretty good job of creating the storylines. And with season 3, I'm only a couple episodes in because it just dropped like 2 days ago at the time of this recording, is setting up the fact that, wow, now people who are auditioning for DCC are people who are doing it because they saw the show, or they've done it after the show aired, whereas the previous 2 seasons, the show wasn't out yet. So they were just auditioning, not really understanding where they were going. But it's just like, I started watching Love Island, the new season of Love Island with Jen a couple weeks ago. And it's, you know, we always joke that the UK version of Love Island is way more fun because the US version, it seems like way too many of them are trying to get on the show in order to further their career, which fine, go, do you. But like, that's what I just love looking at the DCC. And I love to understand the mechanics of a big organization and a big brand, even if they're not, you know, totally accurately portrayed in the series. It's edited. There's edits, y'all. But there's just something about seeing people perform and work hard and be good, be competent, that I fucking love. So I'm definitely shipping season 3 of the America's Sweethearts DCC show on Netflix.
So it's Nikki the personal trainer meets Nikki the operations professional.
Here we go. Yeah. The former competitive athlete. I told somebody that. I'm like, yeah, I used to be a competitive athlete. And they're like, you? I was like, do I not? Like, I know Rude. I'm short and like I don't look super strong, but like I was a competitive weightlifter, y'all. Like I was at the winery the other weekend helping out some folks with one of the pickup parties, and I'm carrying like multiple cases of wine at the same time. Some of the new staff is like, oh my God. It's like, you know, 60, 70 pounds of wine. And the returning staff is like, oh yeah, Nikki can do that. And I was like, fuck yeah, I can do that. Thank you. Meg,
please don't throw out your neck again, please.
I'm going to try not to. Meg, what are you shipping?
Okay, so this was on my list of books that I wanted to figure out how to recommend in the episode and didn't get there, so we're going to do it now, because that's how we roll. I'm shipping We Could Be So Good by Cat Sebastian. Have you read this one? Oh, it's so delightful. It is set in 1958. So historical, but not the time period that you expect. It is Nick and Andy. They work in a newspaper together. Nick is sort of working class, worked his way up from being a copy boy, eventually became a reporter. Andy is the son of the newspaper owner. So they're in New York City. Andy's engaged to another woman who's also wealthy, and so Nick sort of has this longing and crush on him because Nick is gay and Nick knows he's gay, but Nick can't do anything about it because it's 1958 and there are raids, and if he gets caught then he loses his job, he goes to jail for a month, it ruins his entire life if people find out that he's gay. And so Andy, I was going to say Andy figures it out. No, Andy's ex-fiance Emily figures it out and tells him because Andy's completely oblivious. And Andy's just like, he's this big mess of a character. He's clearly like, not clearly, but probably undiagnosed ADHD because it was 1958 and no one's diagnosing ADHD and giving anybody Adderall at this point. But Andy's trying to figure out like, oh, he's realizing that he has these feelings for Nick, but he's also like, they're co-reporters, but at some point Andy's going to take over the paper where Nick works, and Andy knows he doesn't have the language for being bisexual because it's 1958, but he knows that he could be happy with a woman. He doesn't have to do what Nick does. And so it's just this really interesting exploration of, at a time where it was becoming not quite mainstream, but a lot of it is set in the Village in New York City, and so you get the Village voice sort of explaining what's happening in the culture. And, you know, Andy's from the Upper West Side, Nick is more of like working class neighborhoods, and so you see more queerness available there and sort of rising up in the city, and it's just a really beautiful love story that is a strong friends to lovers, but also a queer awakening, and also just like such an interesting time period to set a queer book. You don't see it in this time because it was so criminalized. Mm.
Oh, okay.
So
adding to my
list. Check it out. We Could Be So Good by Cat Sebastian.
I love it. All right, folks, that is all for us this week. If you'd like to support the show, a couple things you can do for absolutely $0. Rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast provider of choice. Give us a follow on our social media accounts. We are at First Dates and Soulmates most of the places. And if you do have a little money that you'd like to send our way, we are now offering show sponsorships. You can check out all those details at firstdatesandsoulmates.com, or you can subscribe to the show on Substack. Do it for 1 month, do it for many months. We're just so pleased that you are here. Soulmates, we love you very much. Coming up next week, we are continuing our rom-com through the ages series. We are talking 1970s, and y'all, we have thoughts, feelings, and God, maybe do I hate men in the 70s. Maybe that's just the takeaway. We will see you next week. Bye.